Have you ever wondered what your horse might be up to when no one's watching? On a quiet farm in Kentucky, John discovers a mystery. Open stable doors, horses roaming free, and no explanation. But what he finds on camera will leave you speechless. Stay tuned as we reveal how Bella, a brilliant black mare, became a viral sensation. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Let's dive in. Nestled in the rolling hills of Kentucky, Bluegrass Ranch was a sight to behold. Acres of lush green fields stretched endlessly, framed by white wooden fences and dotted with majestic horses grazing in the early morning mist. The ranch belonged to John Miller, a stoic yet kind-hearted man in his mid-50s. With his rugged features, salt and pepper beard, and a voice tinged with southern warmth, John was the epitome of a Kentucky horseman. For years, he had managed the ranch with the help of his lifelong friends, Michael and Susan Parker, who lived in a charming old farmhouse just a mile down the road. For all its beauty and serenity, the ranch had recently been shrouded in a peculiar mystery. Every morning for the past week, John would awaken to find the stable doors wide open. The horses, including Bella, his prized black mare, were always wandering around the pastures or sometimes standing at the gates of the property. Inside the stable, hay bales would be toppled over, tacks scattered across the floor, and water troughs inexplicably empty. At first, John chalked it up to a faulty latch, a gust of wind, or even his own forgetfulness. But the incidents became more frequent and the disarray more pronounced. One crisp morning, John walked into the stable and let out an exasperated sigh. "Damn it, not again," he muttered under his breath. Bella stood by the entrance, her sleek black coat glistening in the sunlight, her large dark eyes watching him with an almost mischievous glint. Susan arrived a few minutes later, her auburn hair pulled back into a loose braid, and an easy smile on her face. But the moment she saw the state of the stable, her expression turned serious. "John, this isn't just an open door. Someone, or something, is getting in here," she said firmly, inspecting the latch. John leaned against the stable post, his arms crossed. "I've checked every inch of this place, Susan. There's no sign of anyone breaking in. If it's not human, then what the hell is it?" Michael, always the pragmatist, joined them shortly after. He was a burly man with a booming laugh, but today his demeanor matched the seriousness of the situation. "Maybe it's time to set up some cameras. If we're dealing with vandals, we need to know." Reluctantly, John agreed. That afternoon, they installed discrete motion-activated cameras in and around the stable. John felt a pang of unease as he adjusted the last camera. He had poured his soul into this ranch, and the thought of someone, or something, threatening its peace made his jaw tighten. That night, the trio sat in the ranch house's cozy living room. The fire crackled in the hearth as they reviewed their plan. "We'll check the footage first thing in the morning," Michael said, setting the security feed to record. "If there's anything out there, we'll know." Susan nodded, but cast a worried glance toward John. "Are you okay with all this attention on Bella? You know how rare she is." John sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "She's smart, Sue, almost too smart for her own good. But I've got to protect all of them, especially her." As the hours ticked by, John lay awake in bed, his mind racing. The rhythmic sounds of crickets and distant hoots of an owl seemed louder that night. He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind the disturbances wasn't entirely ordinary. At dawn, he met Susan and Michael at the stable, coffee mugs in hand. The scene was familiar. Open doors, scattered hay, and restless horses. Bella stood near the gate, her tail flicking in irritation. Michael grabbed his tablet, pulling up the footage. The three of them huddled close, eyes fixed on the screen. What they saw left them speechless. Bella, the sleek, intelligent mare, was using her muzzle to unhook the latch with precision, nudging the doors open and calmly leading the other horses out into the night. Her movements were deliberate, calculated, and utterly fascinating. John let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. She's not just smart, she's a genius." Susan laughed, her eyes wide with amazement. "Looks like you've got a little escape artist on your hands." Michael leaned back, shaking his head. "I've seen a lot of things on this ranch, but this takes the cake. They all shared a laugh, but beneath the humor was a shared sense of awe and curiosity. Bella wasn't just a horse. She was something extraordinary, and little did they know, this discovery was only the beginning of a whirlwind they could never have anticipated. After the astonishing discovery on the camera footage, John couldn't shake the sense of unease mixed with awe. Watching Bella carefully unlatch the stable door, release the other horses, and lead them on a nightly adventure was both incredible and disconcerting. He knew horses were intelligent, but Bella's precision and intent were on another level. This isn't just instinct, John muttered to himself as he replayed the footage for the third time in his office that morning. She's thinking this through. Later that day, Michael and Susan joined him in the stable. Susan was visibly excited, her auburn braids swaying as she gestured toward Bella, who stood calmly in her stall, flicking her ears as if listening to their conversation. "John, this could be huge," Susan said. "We need to understand how she's doing this. Maybe even why." Michael, always the realist, frowned. "It's fascinating, sure, but it's also a problem. If word gets out that she's doing this, we might attract the wrong kind of attention." John sighed and leaned against Bella's stall. "You're both right. We can't ignore this, but we need to handle it carefully. First, we have to figure out what's driving her." Susan knelt by Bella, running her hand along the mare's sleek coat. "Maybe she's bored? Horses are social animals, and she's clearly smart. Could she be craving more stimulation?" Michael crossed his arms. "Could be, or maybe it's something else. Animals don't do things like this without a reason." They decided to monitor Bella's behavior closely over the next few nights, setting up more cameras and spending hours analyzing her actions. Susan even reached out to a local equine behaviorist, Dr. Rebecca Harper, for insight. Dr. Harper, a sharp and inquisitive woman in her 40s, visited the ranch the following day. As they walked through the stable, Rebecca observed Bella carefully. "She's magnificent," she said, her voice tinged with admiration. "Horses are capable of incredible problem-solving, especially ones as bright as Bella. But this level of precision? That's rare. Can we figure out why she's doing it?" John asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and concern. Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. "It could be boredom, as Susan mentioned, or a desire for exploration. But it's also possible she's picked up on something in her environment that's triggering this behavior." "Like what?" Michael asked, raising an eyebrow. Rebecca smiled slightly. "That's what we'll find out. But you'll need patience. Bella isn't just any horse. She's unique, and she's clearly trying to tell you something." That evening, the group gathered at the ranch house, sipping coffee as the sun dipped below the horizon. They discussed strategies for understanding Bella's actions without disrupting her natural behavior. "Maybe we should let her do her thing," Susan suggested. "See where she goes and what she does when she thinks no one's watching." Michael shook his head. "That's risky. What if she gets hurt? Or worse, what if someone else sees her and tries to take advantage?" John nodded in agreement. "We'll follow her, but discreetly. If she's leading the other horses somewhere, there's a reason. We need to know what it is." At midnight, they stationed themselves at strategic points around the ranch, hidden but within sight of the stable. The air was crisp and still, the stars casting a soft glow over the sprawling property. Inside the stable, Bella began her nightly routine, carefully unlatching the door with her muzzle. One by one, the other horses followed her lead, their hoofbeats muffled by the soft dirt. As Bella led the small herd out into the pastures, John and Michael followed at a distance, their flashlights turned off to avoid spooking the horses. Susan monitored the live camera feed from her phone, relaying updates through a walkie-talkie. "She's heading toward the north field," Susan whispered. Past the creek, the men exchanged a glance. The north field was secluded, bordered by dense woods. Few ventured there, and John hadn't used the area for grazing in years. When they reached the field, they found Bella standing at the edge of the woods, her ears pricked forward. She pawed at the ground and let out a low whinny, as if signaling the others. The other horses stood behind her, calm yet attentive. "What's she doing?" Michael murmured. John squinted into the darkness. "I don't know, but she's definitely focused on something." Before they could get closer, Bella turned her head, her eyes locking onto John. For a moment, it felt as if she were challenging him to trust her. Then, with a flick of her tail, she led the herd back toward the stable, leaving John and Michael standing in the moonlit field, more questions swirling in their minds than answers. "She knows something we don't," John said quietly as they walked back. "And I'll be damned if I don't figure out what it is." The following morning, John couldn't shake the feeling that Bella was trying to communicate something significant. The way she had stood at the edge of the woods, her posture alert and purposeful, haunted him. As he prepared his morning coffee in the ranch house, Susan arrived, her phone in hand. "You have to see this," she said, her excitement palpable. She handed him the phone, showing a clip from the footage captured overnight. On the screen, Bella's actions were more deliberate than ever. She didn't just open the stable door and nudge the latches with precision. She systematically approached each horse, nudging them gently to guide them out. She led them to the same spot near the woods, pausing and scanning her surroundings as if searching for something. "It's not random," Susan said, her voice laced with awe. "She's doing this for a reason." Michael joined them, glancing at the video over John's shoulder. "We need to check that spot again. There's something out there she's drawn to." Later that day, the trio ventured to the north field with Bella in tow. Unlike the previous night, Bella seemed more relaxed in the daylight. She walked calmly beside John, her black coat gleaming under the sun. As they approached the wooded area, Bella's demeanor shifted. Her ears perked up, and she began to pull on the lead rope, urging John forward. "All right, girl, I'm coming," John muttered, quickening his pace. When they reached the edge of the woods, Bella stopped and pawed at the ground. John exchanged a look with Susan and Michael before kneeling to inspect the area. The ground was disturbed, the dirt slightly raised as if something had been recently buried. "Looks like she's been trying to dig here," Susan observed, pointing to the shallow scrapes in the soil. Michael handed John a small shovel from the supplies they had brought along. Only one way to find out what's going on. As John dug into the ground, Bella stood close by, her eyes fixed on the spot as if supervising his work. After a few minutes, the shovel hit something solid. John's heart raced as he cleared the dirt away, revealing a small wooden box, weathered and worn from time. "What the hell is this?" Michael asked, his voice low. John carefully pried the lid open. Inside were a collection of old trinkets, a faded photograph of a young girl standing next to a horse, a rusted horseshoe, and a delicate silver necklace with a charm shaped like a horse's head. The items were neatly arranged, as if placed there with care. This belonged to someone," John said, his voice thick with emotion. He held up the photograph, studying the girl's smiling face. "Whoever buried this loved horses as much as we do." Susan reached for the necklace, her eyes softening. "This must have been a keepsake. Maybe Bella knew it was here somehow." Michael crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "But why now? Why would she suddenly lead us here?" Before they could speculate further, Bella nickered softly and nudged John's shoulder, her large eyes meeting his. It felt as if she were saying, "There's more to this story." Back at the ranch, the group cleaned the items and began piecing together the mystery. Susan posted a picture of the photograph online, hoping someone in the community might recognize the girl or know the history behind the buried box. Within hours, responses flooded in. One comment stood out: "That's my grandmother, Clara Davis. She used to own Bluegrass Ranch decades ago. Those things must be hers." The comment came from a woman named Margaret Davis, who lived just an hour away. John immediately reached out, inviting her to visit the ranch and share more about Clara's story. When Margaret arrived the next day, she was overcome with emotion. "I can't believe you found this," she said, holding the photograph close. "My grandmother adored this place. Bella reminds me so much of her favorite horse, Midnight. She always said he was the smartest horse she'd ever owned." Margaret went on to explain that Clara had lost Midnight in a tragic accident years ago and had buried the keepsakes as a way to honor him. "She would have been thrilled to know Bella is carrying on that legacy," Margaret said with tears in her eyes. The discovery deepened John's bond with Bella. "You knew this belonged here, didn't you?" he murmured to her one evening, stroking her sleek neck. Bella nickered softly, her eyes filled with a wisdom John couldn't quite comprehend. What began as a curious mystery had turned into a profound connection to the ranch's history. Yet, little did John know, Bella's story was far from over. The story of Bella's remarkable intelligence and the discovery of Clara Davis's keepsakes quickly spread beyond the ranch. Susan, inspired by the emotional connection to the past, shared a short video of Bella's clever actions on her social media account. It showed Bella opening the stable doors, gently nudging the other horses out, and standing watch over them in the field under the moonlight. Alongside the video, Susan added a heartfelt caption, "Meet Bella, the smartest mare at Bluegrass Ranch. She's not just opening doors, she's uncovering stories from the past and reminding us of the unbreakable bond between humans and animals." Within hours, the video gained traction. Comments and shares poured in, and by the next morning, the post had gone viral. News outlets began reaching out, requesting interviews with John, Susan, and Michael. The clip had captured the hearts of people across the country, sparking a wave of fascination with Bella's unique abilities. The first reporter to visit the ranch was Amy Carter from a popular Kentucky news station. Petite with a sharp wit and an eye for storytelling, Amy arrived with her camera crew on a bright spring morning. She was greeted by John at the ranch's front gate. "Mr. Miller," Amy said, extending her hand, "thank you for having us. I've been covering stories in Kentucky for years, but I've never seen anything like Bella." John shook her hand and smiled modestly. "Call me John. Bella's special, that's for sure, but we're just glad she's getting the attention she deserves." The crew followed John to the stable, where Bella stood in her stall, her sleek black coat shimmering in the sunlight. As the cameras rolled, Amy asked, "So, John, how did you realize Bella was behind the mystery?" John chuckled. "It took us a while to figure it out. At first, we thought it was a faulty latch, or maybe someone playing a prank. But when we caught her on camera, well, we couldn't believe our eyes." Amy leaned closer to Bella, who nickered softly and extended her muzzle. "She's incredible. Has she always been this smart?" "She's always been different," John admitted. "Bella's curious, and she observes everything. It's like she's one step ahead of the rest of us." The news segment aired that evening, accompanied by the original viral video. Within days, Bella became a national sensation. Emails, letters, and calls flooded the ranch from people eager to visit or learn more about her. Offers for partnerships, sponsorships, and even movie appearances came pouring in. "John, you won't believe this," Susan said one morning, holding up her phone. "A woman from California wants to fly out just to meet Bella. She said her daughter wants to see the horse with the big brain." John sighed, adjusting his worn cowboy hat. "This is getting out of hand, Susan. She's a horse, not a celebrity." "She is now," Michael added with a laugh, holding up a copy of the local paper with Bella's photo on the front page. The headline read, "The mare with a mind of her own." The newfound fame brought an influx of visitors to Bluegrass Ranch. Families, reporters, and curious travelers showed up daily, eager to see Bella in action. John and Susan did their best to accommodate the crowds while ensuring the safety of the horses. One sunny Saturday, a young girl named Abby arrived with her parents. Abby, who used a wheelchair, had begged her family to bring her to the ranch after watching Bella's video. "Can I see Bella?" Abby asked shyly as John greeted them at the gate. "Of course," John said, his heart softening. He led the family to the stable, where Bella was munching on hay. When Abby rolled up to the stall, Bella immediately leaned her head down, sniffing curiously. "Hi, Bella," Abby whispered. Reaching out to pet her, Bella stood still, her large dark eyes full of gentle curiosity. "She's amazing," Abby said, looking up at John. "It's like she understands me." John nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "She has a way of connecting with people," he said softly. "That's her real gift." As the weeks passed, the ranch's popularity showed no signs of slowing down. While John was grateful for the positive attention, he couldn't ignore the challenges it brought. The constant stream of visitors disrupted the tranquil rhythm of ranch life, and the horses, including Bella, were beginning to show signs of stress. "This isn't sustainable," John admitted during a late-night meeting with Susan and Michael in the ranch house. "Bella didn't ask for any of this, and I'm not sure how much more she can handle. I've been thinking the same thing, Susan said. Maybe we need to set boundaries. Limited visits, scheduled tours, something to protect her and the other horses. Michael nodded in agreement. And we need to be careful about who we let in. There's a lot of good people out there, but not everyone has the best intentions. John sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, let's come up with a plan. Bella's well-being comes first, no matter what. What had started as a charming discovery was now a delicate balancing act. Bella's intelligence had captivated the world, but it was up to John and his team to ensure that her story remained one of inspiration and care, not exploitation. As Bella's fame spread, Bluegrass Ranch transformed from a quiet sanctuary into a bustling destination. What was once a tranquil routine of tending to the horses and enjoying the peaceful Kentucky countryside was now punctuated by the hum of cars pulling into the ranch's driveway and the excited chatter of visitors eager to catch a glimpse of the remarkable mare. At first, John welcomed the attention with cautious optimism. Families would arrive with children in tow, eager to meet Bella and hear her story. Many brought gifts, carrots, apples, and even handmade trinkets meant for the mare. Bella, with her natural grace, took it all in stride, nuzzling the occasional visitor and standing calmly as children patted her shiny black coat. But as the weeks turned into months, the steady trickle of visitors became a flood. The once quiet pastures now echoed with voices, and John began to notice the toll it was taking on the ranch's rhythm. One Saturday morning, a line of cars snaked down the dirt road leading to the ranch. John stood at the gate, his weathered face shadowed with concern as he watched the growing crowd. Families, reporters, and curious onlookers poured out of their vehicles, some with cameras and notepads in hand. "Morning, Mr. Miller," a man called out, tipping his baseball cap. "We drove 3 hours to see Bella. Is she around?" "She's in the stable," John replied, forcing a polite smile. "But we're asking folks to give her some space. She's been under a lot of stress lately." The man nodded, but looked disappointed. Nearby, a group of teenagers snapped photos by the fence, their laughter carrying on the breeze. One of them held a sign that read, "Bella for President." Susan appeared by John's side, a clipboard in hand. "This is getting out of control," she said in a low voice. "People are showing up without notice, and it's starting to overwhelm the horses." John sighed, tipping his hat back. "I know. We need to set limits. This isn't a circus, and Bella isn't a sideshow." That afternoon, the trio held an impromptu meeting in the ranch house kitchen. The walls, adorned with old horse show ribbons and family photos, seemed to bear witness to their growing frustration. "We can't keep going like this," Michael said, his tone firm. "The horses are spooked, and Bella's routine is completely disrupted. We need rules." "I've been thinking the same thing," Susan agreed. "We could set visiting hours, limit the number of people allowed on the property, and require reservations. That way, we can control the flow." John nodded slowly. "And no unsupervised access to the stables. Bella's safety comes first." They drafted a plan to manage the influx of visitors, guided tours, restricted areas, and a donation system to help cover the costs of maintaining the ranch. Susan took charge of updating the website and social media pages, posting clear guidelines for those wanting to visit. Despite their efforts, not everyone respected the new rules. Late one evening, John was locking up the stables when he noticed a shadow moving near the paddock. His pulse quickened as he grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the noise. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice echoing in the still night. The beam of his flashlight landed on a young man climbing over the fence. Startled, the intruder froze, his face pale in the harsh light. I just wanted to see Bella," the man stammered, holding up his hands. "You think sneaking onto my property is the way to do that?" John snapped, his anger barely contained. "This isn't a zoo, kid. You're trespassing." The man muttered an apology before scrambling back over the fence and disappearing into the darkness. Shaking his head, John returned to the house, where Susan was waiting. "Another one?" she asked, her expression weary. "Yeah," John replied, sinking into a chair. "We're gonna need more than rules. We need real security." The next day, Michael arranged for a local security company to install additional cameras and motion sensors around the property. They also hired a part-time security guard to patrol the grounds during peak visiting hours. "This isn't just about Bella anymore," Michael said as they walked the perimeter. "It's about protecting everyone. Our horses, the visitors, and us." John agreed, though the changes left him feeling uneasy. The ranch had always been a place of openness and trust, and turning it into a guarded facility felt like a loss. But he knew it was necessary. Not all the visitors brought challenges. One afternoon, a group of veterans from a local rehabilitation center arrived, arranged by Susan as part of a special tour. Among them was a man named James, who walked with a cane and carried a quiet air of melancholy. When he met Bella, something shifted. The mare approached him with her usual calm demeanor, lowering her head so he could stroke her muzzle. "She's beautiful," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "I used to have a horse like her, back before everything." Bella nickered softly, leaning into his touch. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Susan watched from a distance, tears brimming in her eyes. "This is why we do it," she whispered to John. "Moments like this." John nodded, his heart full. Despite the challenges, Bella's story continued to touch lives in ways he never could have imagined. The attention Bella brought to Bluegrass Ranch was a double-edged sword, but John and his team were determined to navigate the challenges with grace. They knew Bella's story wasn't just about her intelligence. It was about the connections she fostered, the hope she inspired, and the legacy she was building. As the weeks passed, the changes to Bluegrass Ranch were undeniable. The once quiet pastures were now bustling with activity as visitors came from far and wide, eager to see Bella. The mare had become a symbol of intelligence, curiosity, and connection. However, her growing fame brought challenges that tested the resolve of John and his team. John stood in the paddock one morning, watching the horses graze. Bella, as always, held a commanding presence among the herd, her sleek black coat shimmering in the sunlight. But John noticed a change in the horses' behavior. They seemed restless, their movements more erratic. Even Bella, usually calm and confident, flicked her tail with irritation more often. "Something's not right," John muttered. Susan joined him, carrying a clipboard filled with notes. "I've been keeping track," she said. "The horses are more skittish than usual, and Bella isn't eating as much. I think all the noise and extra people are overwhelming them." John nodded grimly. "We've tried limiting the crowds, but it's still too much. The ranch wasn't built for this kind of attention." That afternoon, the team met in the ranch's modest office, the walls adorned with old photos of horse shows and local events. Michael leaned against the desk, arms crossed, while Susan paced the room. "We can't keep going like this," Susan said. "It's not fair to the horses," Michael chimed in. "We need to scale back. Fewer visitors, stricter hours. Maybe even turn down some of the media requests." John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I never wanted this to be a spectacle. Bella's special, but she's still a horse. She deserves peace." Susan stopped pacing and looked at him. "What if we focus on making the ranch an educational experience? We could teach people about horse care, animal intelligence, and the bond between humans and animals. It's a way to share Bella's story without turning this into a circus." John considered the idea. "That could work, but we'll need to be clear about the rules. No one gets near the horses without permission, and Bella only participates when she's comfortable." Not everyone took kindly to the new restrictions. One afternoon, a group of visitors arrived at the gate, only to be turned away by the newly hired security guard. "This is ridiculous," one man complained. "We drove 4 hours to see that horse. You can't just turn us away." The guard remained calm but firm. "The ranch has rules to protect the animals. You're welcome to schedule a tour for another day." Inside the house, John overheard the commotion and sighed. "This is the part one hate," he told Susan. "I don't want to disappoint people, but Bella's well-being comes first." Susan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're doing the right thing, John. People will understand. Or at least the ones who matter will." One evening, after the last visitors had left and the ranch was quiet again, John went to check on Bella. She stood near the fence, her ears twitching as he approached. "Hey, girl," he said softly, rubbing her neck. "You've turned this place upside down." You know that? Bella nickered, leaning into his touch. John smiled, his earlier frustrations melting away. I don't know how you do it, putting up with all this attention. You're stronger than I am. He stayed with her for a while. The two of them bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. In that moment, John was reminded of why he had dedicated his life to the ranch and its horses. Bella wasn't just a source of fascination. She was a partner, a companion, and a reminder of the simple, profound connections that made life meaningful. Word of the ranch's challenges spread, and the local community began to step in. Neighbors volunteered to help with the tours, local businesses donated supplies, and a nearby equine therapy center offered their support. At a town meeting, a retired veterinarian named Dr. Allen stood up. Bluegrass Ranch has always been a cornerstone of this community, he said. Bella's story is inspiring, but it's up to us to make sure it stays that way. Let's protect what makes this place special. The room erupted in applause, and John felt a surge of gratitude. For the first time in weeks, he felt like they weren't in this alone. With the new restrictions and the community's support, the ranch began to find its rhythm again. Visitor numbers dropped to a manageable level, and the horses seemed more relaxed. Bella, too, appeared to thrive with the changes. She resumed her playful antics, nudging John's hat off his head or chasing butterflies in the pasture. She's back to her old self, Susan remarked one morning as she watched Bella canter across the field. John smiled, tipping his hat. That's all I ever wanted. The challenges of Bella's fame were far from over, but the ranch had found a way to balance the spotlight with the serenity that made it home. And through it all, Bella remained the heart of Bluegrass Ranch, a shining example of resilience and connection. The peace at Bluegrass Ranch, carefully restored through months of adjustments, was suddenly shattered on a quiet Friday night. The horses were tucked into their stalls, the property locked down, and the ranch house lights dimmed as John and the team prepared for a rare evening of uninterrupted rest. But just as John was drifting off to sleep, his phone buzzed with an alert, motion detected near the stables. John bolted upright, his heart racing. Grabbing his coat and flashlight, he hurried out of the house and into the chilly night. The air was eerily still, save for the distant rustle of leaves in the breeze. Susan and Michael, alerted by their own notifications, quickly joined him. What's going on? Susan asked, clutching her jacket tightly. Motion sensors picked something up, John replied tersely. It's near the stables. They moved as a unit toward the building, their footsteps muffled by the damp grass. As they approached, the beam of John's flashlight illuminated a figure near the stable door. The intruder, dressed in dark clothing, was fumbling with the latch. Hey, get away from there, John shouted, his voice cutting through the stillness. The figure froze for a moment before bolting toward the fence. Michael sprinted after them, but stopped short as the intruder disappeared into the shadows of the nearby woods. Inside the stable, the horses were restless, their hooves stomping anxiously. Bella stood in her stall, her eyes wide with alarm. Easy, girl, John murmured, stepping into her stall to calm her. She nickered softly, pressing her muzzle against his chest. Susan inspected the stable doors and found the lock had been partially cut. They were trying to break in, she said, her voice shaking. Probably after Bella. Or worse, all the horses. Michael returned, out of breath and visibly frustrated. Lost them in the woods. Whoever they are, they know the area. John's jaw tightened. This isn't just curiosity anymore. This is a threat. The next morning, John called an emergency meeting with Susan, Michael, and the security team. The ranch's cozy kitchen, with its warm wooden beams and aroma of fresh coffee, felt like a war room as they strategized. We need to step up security, Michael said, his tone firm. More cameras, stronger locks, and maybe even overnight patrols. Susan nodded. I can reach out to the sheriff's department, see if they can increase their presence in the area. And we should update the community about what happened. If someone saw something, it could help. John agreed, but felt a pang of frustration. The ranch had always been a place of openness, where people and animals could thrive without fear. Turning it into a fortress felt like losing a piece of its soul. Later that day, a local locksmith arrived to install reinforced locks on all the stable doors. Motion-activated floodlights were added around the property, and the security guards' hours were extended to include overnight shifts. John also decided to install a second perimeter fence around the most vulnerable parts of the ranch. Word of the attempted break-in spread quickly through the small Kentucky town. Neighbors stopped by to offer support, bringing homemade meals, extra supplies, and words of encouragement. "You let us know if you need anything, John," said Mrs. Thompson, a retired teacher who lived nearby. "This ranch means a lot to all of us." The local sheriff, a no-nonsense woman named Deputy Rachel Carter, visited the ranch personally. With her sharp eyes and authoritative demeanor, Rachel assured John she'd keep a close watch on the area. "These kinds of incidents don't sit well with me," she said. "Whoever's behind this won't get a second chance." Despite the increased security, the incident left everyone on edge. John found himself walking the property late at night, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Bella often accompanied him, her presence a comforting reminder of why he was fighting so hard to protect the ranch. One evening, as he stood by the fence overlooking the moonlit pastures, Susan joined him. "You okay?" she asked, leaning on the fence beside him. John sighed. "I'm just tired. I've spent my whole life trying to create a place where these horses could be safe, and now it feels like that's slipping away." Susan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're doing everything you can, John. Bella's story has brought so much good to this place. We can't let one bad night take that away." A few days later, the security cameras caught a chilling sight. The same figure from the previous break-in attempt, lurking near the outer fence. This time, they weren't alone. Another person, also dressed in dark clothing, was with them. The footage showed them pointing at the stable and gesturing toward the surrounding fields. "This is escalating," Michael said, watching the footage with a deep frown. "They're planning something." John's stomach churned. "We're not waiting for them to make their move. I'll talk to Deputy Carter. It's time to take this to the next level." The ranch was no longer just a haven for horses. It had become the center of a growing conflict. The team's determination to protect Bella and the other animals only grew stronger in the face of the threats, but the stakes had never been higher. John stood in the stable that night, stroking Bella's neck as she nibbled on a flake of hay. "I don't know what's coming next," he murmured, "but I promise you this, girl. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." Bella nickered softly, her calm presence a stark contrast to the tension swirling around the ranch. Whatever challenges lay ahead, John knew he wasn't facing them alone. The attempted break-ins had left Bluegrass Ranch on high alert. The peaceful sanctuary that John had worked so hard to maintain now felt like a potential battleground. Determined to ensure the safety of the horses and the people who cared for them, John and his team took immediate action to fortify the ranch. The first step was reinforcing the stables. The new locks installed by the local locksmith were industrial-grade, resistant to cutting or tampering. Michael worked with the security company to install additional cameras, strategically placed to cover blind spots around the property. "I've added motion sensors to the stable doors and perimeter fence," Michael explained during a team meeting. "If anyone gets too close, the lights will turn on and we'll get real-time alerts." Deputy Rachel Carter also increased patrols around the area, making her presence known. "We want whoever's doing this to know we're watching," she said, her tone firm. "People like this thrive on fear and secrecy. We're not giving them either." John also decided to invest in a secondary perimeter fence, a project that would take weeks to complete but offered an extra layer of protection. The fence was designed to be tall and durable, with warning signs posted at regular intervals. As the construction crew worked, neighbors stopped by to lend a hand. Some brought tools, others brought food, and many simply offered words of encouragement. "You're not alone in this, John," said Mr. Parker, an older rancher who had lived in the area for decades. "This community looks out for its own." Recognizing the potential for future threats, John and Michael organized a series of training sessions for everyone working at the ranch. A local self-defense instructor was brought in to teach basic safety measures, and Deputy Carter provided a crash course on identifying suspicious behavior and reporting it effectively. During one session, Susan asked, "Do you really think they'll come back?" "I hope not," Deputy Carter replied, "but it's better to be prepared. People who target animals like Bella often see them as commodities, not living beings." We need to show them that this ranch isn't an easy target. While the humans worked to strengthen security, the horses gradually adjusted to the increased activity. Bella, ever observant, seemed to understand the urgency of the changes. She often stood at the edge of her paddock, watching the construction with a calm, steady gaze. "She knows we're doing this for her," Susan said one afternoon as she stroked Bella's neck. "It's like she can sense how much we care." John smiled faintly. "She's always been perceptive. That's what makes her so special." One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, John decided to take a walk around the property. The perimeter fence was nearly complete, and the ranch was bathed in the soft glow of the newly installed floodlights. He stopped near the north pasture, where Bella stood grazing. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" John turned sharply, his hand instinctively reaching for the flashlight at his side. A man stood a few feet away, leaning casually against the fence. He was dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans, his demeanor relaxed but his presence unsettling. "Who are you?" John asked, his voice firm. "Just a passerby," the man replied with a smirk. "Heard about your famous horse and thought I'd take a look." John's eyes narrowed. "This is private property. You need to leave." The man held up his hands in mock surrender. "No harm meant, mister. Just curious is all." As the man walked away, John watched him disappear into the shadows. His unease deepened. Something about the encounter didn't sit right. Back at the house, John relayed the encounter to Susan and Michael. "He didn't do anything threatening," John said, pacing the room. "But he didn't belong here, and he knew it." Michael frowned. "Could be nothing, or it could be someone testing our defenses." Susan nodded. "Either way, we should report it to Rachel." Deputy Carter arrived within the hour, taking down John's description of the man and promising to increase patrols around the ranch. "People like that don't just wander onto properties like this," she said. "You did the right thing calling me." News of the incident spread quickly, and the community rallied once more. Neighbors volunteered to take turns driving by the ranch at night, acting as an informal neighborhood watch. "People know what Bella means to this place," Susan said during one of the evening patrols. "She's not just a horse anymore. She's a symbol of everything we stand for." Despite the heightened security measures, John worked hard to preserve the spirit of Bluegrass Ranch. He continued his daily routines with the horses, spending quiet moments with Bella and ensuring that the ranch remained a place of comfort and care. One evening, as he brushed Bella's coat in the fading light, he spoke softly to her. "We're doing all this for you, girl. You're worth every bit of it." Bella nickered in response, her soft eyes meeting his. In that moment, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they were ready to face them together. Despite the tension and challenges brought by Bella's fame, the bond between her and those at Bluegrass Ranch only deepened. For John, Bella became more than just a remarkable mare. She was a reminder of resilience, connection, and the incredible intelligence animals possess. As the ranch adjusted to its newfound security and fame, Bella continued to touch lives in profound ways. One crisp autumn morning, John walked out to the pasture where Bella was grazing. The air was cool, and the golden leaves of the surrounding trees glistened with dew. Bella's black coat shone in the early sunlight as she raised her head, her ears flicking toward John's approach. "Good morning, girl," John said softly, his voice carrying warmth despite the chill in the air. Bella nickered in response, walking toward him with her characteristic elegance. John rested a hand on her neck, feeling the warmth of her coat. "You've caused quite the stir around here. You know that?" he murmured. "But I wouldn't have it any other way." Bella leaned into his touch, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow. John often found these quiet moments with Bella to be the most grounding, a chance to reconnect with the simple joys of ranch life. The ranch continued to host visitors, but with the new measures in place, the experiences were more personal and meaningful. One afternoon, a group of children from a local foster care center arrived. Among them was a young boy named Ethan, who had been withdrawn and quiet since arriving at the center months earlier. "Ethan, this is Bella," Susan said gently as she led the boy to the fence where Bella stood. The mare nuzzled the wooden rail, her soft eyes watching Ethan with curiosity. Ethan hesitated, clutching the straps of his backpack. "She's so big," he whispered. "She's big, but she's gentle," Susan reassured him. "You can pet her if you want." Slowly, Ethan extended his hand, his fingers trembling slightly. Bella leaned her head down, her warm breath brushing against his skin. A smile spread across Ethan's face as he stroked her nose. "She likes you," John said, stepping closer. "She has a way of knowing when someone needs a friend." Ethan spent the rest of the afternoon with Bella, brushing her coat and even helping Susan feed her. By the end of the visit, Ethan's shy demeanor had softened, and he left the ranch with a newfound confidence. "That's what she does," Susan said to John as they watched Ethan wave goodbye. "She brings out the best in people." Bella's story continued to inspire visitors from all walks of life, including Margaret Davis, the granddaughter of Clara Davis, whose keepsakes Bella had uncovered. Margaret often visited the ranch, sharing stories about her grandmother's time there. "She used to say this place had a soul," Margaret told John one afternoon as they sat on the porch of the ranch house. "I think Bella proves she was right." Margaret brought old photographs and letters from Clara's time at the ranch, many of which included stories about Midnight, Clara's favorite horse. Bella's actions and personality mirrored Midnight's in uncanny ways, deepening the connection between the past and present. "It's like she's carrying on Midnight's legacy," Margaret said with a tearful smile. "Thank you for taking such good care of her." Bella's intelligence and empathy continued to amaze John and the team. One evening, as a storm rolled in, John noticed Bella acting unusually restless in her stall. She pawed at the ground and let out a series of soft, urgent whinnies. "What's wrong, girl?" John asked, stepping into her stall. Bella nudged his arm, then turned her head toward the stable doors. John followed her gaze, his stomach tightening. Stepping outside, he noticed a section of the fence near the north pasture had been damaged by the wind. A branch had fallen, leaving a gap wide enough for the horses to escape. "Good catch," he said, returning to Bella. "You're always one step ahead of us." John quickly secured the fence, grateful for Bella's vigilance. It wasn't the first time she had demonstrated an almost uncanny sense of awareness, and it wouldn't be the last. One night, after a long day, John sat in the barn beside Bella's stall. The soft glow of the stable lights illuminated her sleek coat as she munched on hay. "You've changed everything," John said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "This ranch, this town, my life. I don't know how you do it, but I'm grateful every day." Bella stopped eating and turned her head toward him, her dark eyes meeting his. In that moment, John felt a profound sense of understanding pass between them. Bella wasn't just a horse. She was a partner, a friend, and a reminder of the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. As the night deepened, John leaned back against the stall wall, the steady sound of Bella's breathing lulling him into a peaceful calm. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. The story of Bella, the intelligent and graceful mare of Bluegrass Ranch, became a cornerstone of not just the ranch's history but the entire community's spirit. Over time, her impact extended far beyond the quiet Kentucky pastures, touching lives in ways John and his team never could have imagined. As Bella's fame grew, so did the reputation of Bluegrass Ranch. The ranch wasn't just a place for horses anymore. It had become a beacon of hope, education, and connection. Families, schools, and organizations from across the country began visiting, not just to meet Bella, but to experience the harmony and respect for animals that the ranch embodied. To accommodate the growing interest, John and Susan created programs that highlighted the importance of animal welfare, equine therapy, and the profound bond between humans and horses. Bella became the centerpiece of these efforts, her story inspiring countless people to rethink how they viewed and treated animals. "It's not just about Bella," John explained during one of the ranch's workshops. "It's about what she represents: intelligence, kindness, and the potential for connection that we all have with the world around us." The story of Bella's discovery of Clara Davis's keepsakes became a staple of ranch tours. Margaret Davis, Clara's granddaughter, often participated in these events, sharing her grandmother's legacy with visitors. "I like to think Bella knew those things were important," Margaret told a group of school children during one visit. "She reminded us of the stories we almost forgot and brought them back to life." Bella's fame even caught the attention of national media. A documentary crew visited the ranch, filming a special on the extraordinary mare and the ranch's journey. The program aired on a major network, bringing Bella's story to millions of viewers and solidifying her place as a symbol of connection and compassion. For John, Bella's impact was deeply personal. Years of managing the ranch had taught him discipline and resilience, but Bella taught him something else entirely: how to embrace the unexpected and find joy in the simplest moments. "She's changed me," John admitted to Susan one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the horses graze in the twilight. "I've spent my life working with animals, but Bella, she's something else. She's taught me to slow down and really listen." Susan smiled. "She's done the same for all of us." Bella's presence also brought profound changes to the people who visited the ranch. Ethan, the shy boy from the foster care center, returned several times, his confidence blossoming with each visit. He even began volunteering at the ranch, helping with the horses and sharing Bella's story with other children. "She gave me hope," Ethan said during a local news interview. "She made me believe in myself." The road wasn't always easy. The ranch continued to face challenges from those who sought to exploit Bella's fame, but the strengthened security measures and unwavering support from the community kept the ranch safe. When a local businessman offered to buy Bella for an exorbitant sum, promising to make her the star of a touring show, John's response was firm: "Bella's not for sale. She's a part of this family, and this is her home." The businessman persisted, but John's resolve never wavered. Bella belonged at Bluegrass Ranch, and no amount of money could change that. Years passed, and Bella's story continued to inspire. The programs at Bluegrass Ranch expanded to include equine therapy for veterans, children with disabilities, and individuals recovering from trauma. Bella's calm demeanor and intuitive nature made her an ideal partner in these efforts, her presence bringing comfort to those in need. On the ranch's 10th anniversary of Bella's discovery of Clara Davis's keepsakes, the community gathered for a celebration. John, Susan, Michael, and Margaret stood together as a plaque was unveiled near the north pasture, where Bella had first led John to the buried box. The plaque read, "In honor of Bella, whose intelligence, kindness, and courage brought a community together and reminded us all of the beauty of connection." That evening, after the festivities had ended and the ranch had returned to its peaceful quiet, John stood by Bella's stall. The mare nickered softly as he stroked her neck, her dark eyes meeting his with a familiar warmth. "You've done more than I ever thought possible, girl," John said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've changed lives, mine most of all." Bella leaned into him, her presence steady and reassuring. In that moment, John felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for Bella but for the journey they had shared. As he turned to leave, Bella let out a soft whinny, her gaze following him until he disappeared into the night. The bond between them was unspoken but undeniable, a testament to the power of trust, love, and understanding. Bella lived out her days at Bluegrass Ranch, her story continuing to inspire visitors and locals alike. Even after her passing, her legacy remained, woven into the fabric of the ranch and the lives she had touched. For John, Bella was more than a horse. She was a partner, a friend, and a symbol of everything he held dear. And as long as Bluegrass Ranch stood, her spirit would live on, reminding everyone who visited of the extraordinary connection between humans and animals. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and if you watched until here, comment, "I watched until here," and share your opinion about this story. Oh, and don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the end screen for you. It's very exciting.